Well, hello and welcome once again to the DCL podcast, where we're inviting you to sit back, relax, and we'll be on our way shortly. Well, welcome back to the DCL podcast. It's always my pleasure to welcome back to the show the co-host, Christy Puttick of PackYourPixieDust.com. How you doing tonight, Christy?
I am well. How are you?
Not too bad. We're keeping you up late again. This is like above and beyond service from you this last couple weeks and months.
Why so many evening recordings, especially with West Coasters?
Yeah, we've got another guest from the West Coast, and they're just going to have to put more Disney ships out here on the West Coast because I'm starting to notice a trend.
I mean, just because you guys are located there doesn't mean people want to cruise out of there.
Well, all right.
Oh, snap.
Snap. Well, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight, Kelly? Thank you so much for joining us.
Very good. Thank you for having me.
And you are down in the SoCal region, right?
Yes. Outskirts of Los Angeles.
Okay. You guys get
With all your rain.
We're getting our fair share this year.
And feel free. You can throw the snark back at Christy. She likes it.
Excellent.
So I was trying to figure out what to name this show. I think I'm just going to, wasn't there I can't remember, was it like a late night show that they always had like the big show? I think we should call this the big show because we're going to talk about a big group of people that cruised with you tonight, aren't we, Kelly?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so let's jump into it. You guys cruised this past December on the Fantasy on an Eastern Caribbean sailing, and how many people went and who all went with you?
So there were a total of 14 of us. I cruised with my husband and my two young boys. I have a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old. My mother-in-law and my two sister-in-laws and their families.
Now, you said we were talking before the show, you'd cruised with Holland America before. What made you want to branch out now and go with Disney?
So we had a couple reasons. One, it was really important. My late father-in-law was something he always really wanted to do. And we had just sort of wanted to do it to pay homage to him and get the family together. And because all of our children are very young, my eldest son is 9 and he's the oldest. So there were 8 adults and 6 kids. So out of 6 kids, we felt like it was the time, and that if we didn't sort of do it right away, the kids would get older and we may lose out on some of that magic. So
was he just a big Disney fan, or was he a cruise fan, or what were you paying homage to? Did he go to Disneyland a lot, or what was his connection, I guess?
So my father-in-law was a very big traveler.
Okay.
First, and then a huge cruise traveler, and would go to Disneyland every once in a while, but he just really wanted his family happy, and he knew sort of anything that would make us happy he would always try to do. I think he knew with all of his grandchildren, he was like, this is the deal, this is the thing. So unfortunately he passed before we could all go together, but we did this in tribute to him.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was something that we will never forget.
I mean, I don't know if this is too personal, but did you guys do something special once you were on the ship too, or was it just more the memory of doing that together?
It was really just the memory of doing that together. Okay.
Well, with 14 people, how did you guys pick the Christmas Very Merry Time cruise? And how did you pick this cruise, and how did the planning work? I think that this is something, and you kind of mentioned this as we were talking before the show, that we haven't really had a chance to talk a lot of. It's like a large group like this going together. So if you, how did you guys pick this cruise? And then let's jump into how you guys plan for this many people.
Okay, so what I forgot to mention before was that we actually did Walt Disney World right after the cruise. And so we had kind of said, well, look, if we're going to do this Disney cruise and we're going to head all the way out to Florida, we might as well do Walt Disney World as well. And that was the first for all of us to go there. So we had kind of said, let's, first of all, let's talk to friends. I have a few people, being from the West Coast out of California, I have a few friends who work for Disney, and I just sort of reached out to them and said, hey, how do you go about doing this, it being our first Disney cruise? And everyone said, get a travel agent. Like, that's really first and foremost. So we did, and then we started shopping onboard credits, because we figured with that many people, we needed to try and save as much money as we could. And I think I mentioned we booked this in late May or maybe early June. So we were sort of at what I think was the higher pricing of all of this. So we were looking to save any money where we could. So we started looking at travel agents, and one of my sister-in-laws happened to know an agent who she trusted, and we just went with her. She had a pretty good onboard discount, and we just ran with it.
Chris, do you have any tips for people with large groups booking? Anything that you've found that works easier for people?
I definitely like the advice of getting a travel agent because they can really help to see what rooms are available and some different planning stuff like that to assist. So I think that's a good first step.
Okay, so you get the travel agent. You guys narrow down the cruise to December 1st through 8th on the Fantasy. I guess the question I'm trying to figure out, like, the best way to ask this question, but how did you guys plan it? Did you guys do it via? Did you guys live close enough together that you could all get together and talk about it? Did you set up like people use Dropbox or like a Facebook group so you could kind of talk about like what your plans are going to be, what you wanted to do while you're on the cruise, or are you going to do it while Disney World? How did you guys kind of attack that?
Oh, that was tricky. It was not the smoothest, although it wasn't horrible. A few of us live close together. So 3 out of the 4 families were able to get together. And one of my sister-in-laws lives in San Diego. So at some point we were able to sort of get together and say, hey, look at, like, these are the dates. Let's do the cruise. And then since we're there and we're paying for flights, let's do Walt Disney World after. So kind of like a raw sketch of it happened. And then once we sort of all agreed on dates, we went home, found a travel agent, decided on the agent. And then this agent said, hey, look at, I can get you guys on the cruise. I can get your cabins all next door to each other. And it was sort of, everything was via email and text messaging. So really, like, rarely any phone calls or anything. It just was like, hey, can you do this? Hey, usually it'd be the agent the agent emailing us and saying, I have this deal, or my sister-in-law saying, she found these flights. And pretty much, I think because we all knew it was going to be such a massive undertaking, I think everybody was really easygoing with it and just sort of agreed, like, I think we all just sort of agreed and then secretly worried about the cost later. Yeah.
That could be tough because when you're planning that big of a group, everybody has things that they probably at some point want to do that maybe not everybody else wants to do. So kind of managing those expectations of, okay, we'll all meet at breakfast in the morning and on the ship, and we'll have breakfast, and then everybody can go off and do their own things, and then we'll come back and meet for dinner, or however you did it. But I know that's like something that I've seen in the past where it's hard to manage those. If you can manage those expectations ahead of time, then it makes it easier and a lot funner, enjoyable experience.
Yeah, my mother-in-law, the one thing that she really asked for, she said, do what you want during the day, but let's all make sure we're together at dinner. And we all agreed upon that and thought that was a really good idea. So we didn't so much have our days planned out on the ship. When it came to Walt Disney World, we had to play with that later. But as far as being on the ship, we kind of did what we wanted to, and everybody came together at dinner. And as far as the excursions went, we did, I forget what it is, it's like 60 days out. Mm-hmm. For all us first-time cruisers. That was a bit of a circus for us because we kind of didn't know what we wanted to do for sure, and then we waited till that day to do it. So we didn't get, we wanted a cabana, and of course those were gone. And then there were a couple things. So I think going on, if you're able to do a second one, we've taken Disney Cruise 101, and we would be able to plan it and do it a little bit better the second time. But I think everybody had a really great time, even as hard a work of planning as it was.
I think that the idea of doing sort of what you want during the day and coming together for dinner, and then maybe groups of people spending some time together during the day or just showing up in the same location, I think that is a normal practice, if that makes sense. Yeah. I know that's what we did last summer with our large family that traveled, and even growing up, traveling with large groups, that just seems to always work well, which is what I like about cruises, is you can easily do that. And with the Fantasy, for example, there are main meeting locations. So the pool, you can run into people at the pool that you're traveling with, or cabanas, you can run into people. So did you find that during your cruise, that was happening?
Absolutely. Everything happened very organically. We would just, run into my sister-in-law and her husband and, just chit chat with them or have a drink at night. And that ended up being some really special time that we probably couldn't have planned. But again, like it happened so organically, we just, found each other and spent some time together. So it's exactly what happened, Christy.
And to the family, did you have kids that were under 3 as well in your group?
Yes, actually, we had a 3-year-old and we had a 6-month-old.
Oh,
maybe 8-month-old. So yeah, we had quite the range.
and then did you have any others in the 1 to 2-year-old range, or 1 to 3, under 3?
No, we did not. We just had the 7-month-old and then a 3-year-old. And then we went 4 2 6-year-olds and a 9-year-old.
Was the 3-year-old potty trained?
Not quite.
Did that child end up going to the kids club or no?
Yes. All
okay.
the children were able to go to the kids club. Even the infant went to the nursery on occasion. But yeah, everybody was able to go to the kids club. I think we were just lucky with the 3-year-old, not really having any issues or any, accidents. So, and we wouldn't, believe it or not, our kids, I believe, really loved the kids club. But I think that they didn't spend too much time there because they were more worried about what we all were doing, all the adults. So they'd go for an hour or two, and then our wave phone would ring, and that happened so often. And then we'd go get them, and they'd see their cousins, and then one of the cousins would want to go back into the kids club, so then all of them would want to go in. So they were in and out. So when they were in there, they had a great time. But I just think that there were so many kids, and they were just excited to see each other, and so yeah, we were really lucky.
I found our kids love hanging. Actually, believe it or not, when we get big groups of family together, our kids loved. I mean, the kids all kind of want to hang out with the adults too. So kind of like that organic, like you're talking about, but yet still wanting to spend time in the kids clubs, go back and forth. So that's a good sign, right? That they want to hang out with you guys too.
It's a great sign, and all of our families individually are extremely close, and then all of our family together is really close. So it didn't really surprise us. My 9-year-old had mentioned it to me before, we had gone onto the cruise again, obviously the kids' first cruise ever. And I was explaining it to him, and I said, well, there'll be this kids club and what have you. And he was like, well, Mom, all I really want to do is spend time with you guys. And so I kind of going in that he's an extremely sentimental young boy, and we're so blessed, both of our children. And I just thought, oh yeah, sure. Once you get there, I'm sure you're going to change your mind. And sure enough, he really did like it, but then he kind of just wanted to experience what we were experiencing too. So yeah, we were lucky. We had a good time. I think the children, I'm sure you guys have seen the kids club. It's amazing. I wanted to spend time in there.
Well, let's go back to the beginning a little bit. This is a 7-day cruise, very merry time. You guys go to St. Thomas and Tortola, and then Castaway Cay. How did you guys all fly into Florida, and where did you guys stay beforehand, before you guys went to Port Canaveral?
So we all flew in the night before. We got in a little late, and we stayed at the Radisson Resort at the port.
Okay.
That was fine. We just wanted to give ourselves as much time as we could. So flew from Los Angeles to Orlando, stayed there. Everything was fine. We did have an issue, though, unfortunately, at the resort, at the Radisson Resort. And it wasn't a huge issue, but there were so many people registered to take the bus from the resort to the port that it was a circus. And that's to say, I'm maybe understating that a little bit. There were so many people, and there was one woman with a clipboard, and, she was calling groups last names. And we must have waited, I think our time to leave was 8 or 8:30, and we must have waited until 10:30 or 11 before we got on. Wow. Yeah, that was a frustrating way to start the day. But we had a late check-in on the boat, so then we kind of kept thinking, well, I guess we're not in a huge hurry to get down to the port, because from what I've heard, there's lines at the port as well. But we were kind of frustrated because we were literally, myself and about 300 of my closest friends were waiting in the lobby of this hotel, and you couldn't, the children were getting anxious, and everybody was sitting on the floor. And, so I really felt like the Radisson dropped the ball a little bit on that. And then when I mentioned it to a few people, because I'm one of those people to be like, hey, what's going on? Like, let's talk. They were saying that the port was backed up. We kind of heard that a few times, that the port was having issues and that it wasn't the Radisson, but that they weren't letting a whole bunch of people down there as quickly as they normally do. I mean, who knows? But yeah, we did stay at the Radisson. I feel like that was a really good idea to get there early, especially with the group we had, the size of the group we had.
We are going to do a whole episode on pre-cruise transportation and where to stay. And so we will get into that. So look for that for the listeners in future episodes. It'll be part of our Disney 101. But I find that in any port city that the transportation offered by the hotel ends up sort of being a bit of a cluster. I just am not, I'm almost never a fan. Mm-hmm. It's tough because you had such a large group, and so you would need a lot of Ubers, for example, if you were going to take Uber or Lyft. But that scenario, while it seems like there was more, and maybe there was an issue that the port was backed up, it's odd, too, that they would have you meeting at 8:30 in the morning, because that's super early when the port itself doesn't even open until 10:30, 10:30 at the earliest, and, the port's, 20 minutes away or something. So it just sounds like there was a lot of people and that they didn't handle that well and they didn't hand out the times well. But then I find that as a general rule that the cruise transportation from a hotel is just never seamless. It's never perfectly seamless anyway.
Yeah. I may have had times off a little bit, but boy, this was a cluster. I mean, there were literally a cluster of people. So this was a cluster.
Well, once you guys get to the port finally, how was embarkation at that point? Had it kind of cleared out a little bit? So did you guys get through fairly quickly, or how was that?
Oh, disembarkation was amazing. There was literally nobody there when we got there. When we finally got there, I think that, maybe that there were 25 people. Uh-huh. We were to sort of do whatever we wanted to do. We got to take pictures. We got the flattened pennies that everybody talks about. I think I heard on your podcast. We were able to leisurely walk around the great big ship that was there with all the detail. They had a beautiful Christmas tree in the lobby, of the area where the waiting area. And we were able to take photos. I mean, that was no issue whatsoever. I think we had all of these issues ahead of time. So we didn't even have to wait in line. We checked in. The kids got their bands. It was wonderful. That was easy.
Well, that's good. So it went from kind of a stressful situation to kind of relax, enjoying it, and then onto the ship. What were you guys' first thoughts as you got on the Disney Fantasy? Now, you've been on Holland America. What were your thoughts walking on the Fantasy? Oh,
the ship was beautiful. I mean, just done just as Disney can do, right? I mean, it was beautifully decked out for Christmas. You walk in, there was a great big Christmas tree, I believe, on the left-hand side, and a beautiful staircase. And, as you walk in, they said our last name, which we thought was really special to us. And yeah, it was very leisurely, and the ship was just beautiful.
So you make your way onto the ship. We haven't talked about this yet. What kind of cabins did you guys book at bringing everybody together like that so you guys were close by?
Yeah, so we didn't really have any choice in cabins, basically, just based on the time that we booked. We were on deck 2. So our stateroom number was 2016, and it was I forget all the names of the
was it an inside cabin?
It was an outside cabin without a balcony, but we had a beautiful large porthole.
Ocean view cabin.
Ocean view, sorry about that. Yes, view cabin with a porthole that both of my 2 boys could sit in, and they loved it.
And then how did you find deck 2? So did you hear noise from above?
So from above, no. But it's funny you mentioned it. We heard quite a bit of noise below us. And I just think that we were so low in the ship, we would hear like rolling sound. Like as if someone was, moving a piano. And we would hear that often. I mean, more often than I thought. I was actually really surprised to hear anything. I don't think we ever heard anything above us once. We were too busy listening to the things that we were hearing below. But just like anything, you just sort of get accustomed to hearing it. And it was a rolling sound. So
I'm guessing it was carts of laundry or something like that.
Yeah, it had to have been. Mm-hmm. We did hear that a lot. We did hear mostly, like, I always want to say in late evenings and early mornings, we heard it a lot. But that was when we were in our cabin too. Otherwise, we were out and roaming the ship. So yeah, it was, I would say I didn't really think about it, but I was surprised by how loud it was, even though it didn't affect us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the deal breaker? I would definitely stay in the same cabin on the same deck again. So yeah, I mean, to me, that wasn't a thing. I heard it. It didn't keep me up. It didn't keep my children up. So
I feel like that's the most important.
Yeah, right. We played hard, and those kids slept hard. So that was, and I think it helps to have, when your stateroom is dark, completely dark. I think that also helps out a great deal.
For sure.
Yeah.
So you guys had the bunk beds in there. How did that work out for the kids?
Oh, we did. And our kids loved it. They thought that was the coolest thing, to know that a bunk bed came from the ceiling. And at one point we were able to watch them pull it down. And that, that was the ultimate magic trick. I think that the boys just loved that. And then I heard about on your show about asking the mousekeepers to change the sheets. So on the second morning, I tipped my mousekeeper a little bit extra on that day. And not that I did it daily, but I just tipped him and I said, gee, could we get some of the nice sheets or, some of the character sheets put on the bed tonight? And he gladly did it. Asked me, are both of your children boy or girl? And I said, oh, they're both boys. And he said, how does Cars sound? I said, oh my goodness, that's right up our alley. So our boys then came home the next night, or came back the next night, and we had the Cars sheets on both of the bunk beds, and they just thought that was the coolest thing ever.
That's awesome. I'm actually glad they're still doing it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I had heard it on your podcast, and I just thought, oh my gosh, what a fun thing to surprise them with that isn't going to cost me any additional money. Well, besides
right.
Definitely. Well, let's talk about the food a little bit before we talk about some of the activities you guys did. You'd have it a large group. Did you guys have the later seating, I'm guessing? I know it's hard that the early one kind of goes quickly, but what seating did you guys have?
So we surprisingly got the earlier seating.
Oh, nice.
Which worked out. Yeah. It worked out great for us. I don't know how. I think that was some magic of our travel agent because, everybody pretty much had decided, oh, boy, we're going to end up getting the late one. But somehow we got the earlier seating, and that worked out really good for our group. That really did. The food was, at best, was good. I have trouble trying to figure out why the food was not great or amazing, because just from what I remember, on Holland America, and I had been on another small cruise when I was younger, but I think that it was the size of our party played a huge factor in our servers getting the food out to us timely, meaning hot. And like the first night was our fault because half of our party they showed up a half hour late, and so our poor servers had to sit around and wait to take our order. But by the second night, we had it down, and we were like, all right, you guys, dinner is at this time. I think it was like 5:15 or 5:45. You have to be at the table so our servers we're taking up quite a bit of tables here. We have to be timely. So by the second night, we were super timely, and the food just didn't get any better. At one point, I had a pork chop, and it was so tough I had to send it back. And I don't do that. And I don't send it back and then ask for anything else. I just was like, nope, I'm just not going to eat it. So yeah, I mean, our servers were amazing and really apologetic and just really tried their hardest. But I think that 14 people to serve at one time is a lot. I feel like they could work on that a little bit.
I think that Disney as a whole, unfortunately, needs to work on the hot food angle. That is, I don't know that it's specific to just your larger group. I also think that Holland America is almost always going to have better food. It's a much smaller ship, and most of the time anyway, and they have less people to serve because I think even their bigger ship is slightly smaller than the Fantasy, but most of their ships are smaller. So if you have and the ones that they send to Alaska are typically smaller. So when you have less people to serve, it's easier to serve them. I think Disney strives in so many other areas that is one of the areas they're just sort of like, the food is good, but they hope maybe that people won't notice the food's not amazing all the time.
That's a good analogy, Christy. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that they hope that people won't notice. in coming back from the cruise, and of course everybody wants to know how it was and how the food was. And I just keep saying, oh, it was good. And a lot of people have said, yeah, of course now after we've taken the cruise, we hear that from Disney, that everything about Disney cruising is excellent except the food. It just falls short. And while we had a couple, I would say we had one good meal, everything else just fell short. In fact, we didn't have our best meal until we got the first night at Walt Disney World. Yeah. So that was a little bit of a disappointment, but.
Did the kids seem to like it?
Yeah. I mean, in listening to the podcast, I knew that the kids could order off of the adult menu, but the kids were not interested in anything on the adult menu. They're kids, right? They just wanted, chicken strips and macaroni and cheese and pizza all day. So that's essentially what my kids ate for 7 or 8 days was cheese pizza and chicken strips. And by the time we were done with this cruise, I don't think any of us could look at it anymore. And they wouldn't veer off and try something off the adult menu. They just said, "Oh, I want cheese. I want cheese pizza today." Whatever it was that they mumbled off, and they got whatever they wanted, which was awesome. But as parents, we thought, "Oh man, these poor kids! Like, why don't they just try the broccoli?" But of course, they wouldn't, right? So I think the kids enjoyed their food. I just think that they could maybe get a little bit more creative on the kids' menu as well.
Yeah, you're kind of in that tough age. I remember our kids our youngest is still 8 going on 9, and our oldest is finally starting to venture out a little bit more. But it's that tough age where some of the stuff on the adult menu doesn't appeal to them, and then you kind of get stuck with the same stuff over and over.
Disney, too, just so parents do know, will make you what you want for your kid. It's always easier, sort of on the allergy front. Like, it's easier to let them know the day before. But my kid would just eat grilled chicken many nights in a row, but it's because there's not 7 other kids eating chicken tender in front of him, Like, he's usually the only kid, and so we can be like, oh, grilled chicken, just like you eat at home. And then he just eats it. So people can do that.
Moving up from the food, there's 3 different restaurants on board, the Royal Court, Animator's Palette, Enchanted Garden. Did you guys have one that you liked a little bit better than the others, or any thoughts on those? No thoughts on any of them. They were all great. They were all fun, loved the decor, loved having the same servers. They were all equally good. And did you guys book Palo or anything like that for this cruise?
We did not.
Okay.
We just thought that is probably best for another cruise.
Yeah, you guys all just wanted to be together and spend that time in the evening, which is perfect.
Yes.
Okay, so we kind of skipped over the sail away party. Did you guys make it up there for the sail away party? That's always kind of an exciting time when they blow the horn and you get the ship starts moving.
Yes, actually, we did get up there. It was a very exciting time. Having listened to the podcast, I was waiting to hear the horn, sing "When You Wish Upon a Star" or whatever it is that it does play. So we got up there, all 14 of us, super excited to be up there, watching all the characters play or, dance around. And we, again, traveling with just my sons in particular, keeping an eye on my kids, somehow lost sight of our 6-year-old. And again, only having been on the ship for, I don't know, maybe an hour or two, we just, the frantic, that whole, sense of emergency, a fear kind of rolls over you. Spent probably 20 minutes just trying to look through a sea of people and not finding him at all. Getting up at the highest part of the deck that we could see, not finding, until finally my husband went up and found a cast member and said, "Hey, look, at our 6-year-old is missing." And they said, "Oh, go straight to Kids Club. He's probably been collected." So sure enough, my husband went down there and our son was there. And it was so relieving. It was such a relief to find him there that somebody had just seen him probably walking around and swept him up and took him safely down to Kids Club. And, I suppose that he already had his band on, which they lock on, thank goodness. So my husband went down there. Of course, they scanned his band. They scanned, my husband. And, we found him. He was crying and upset and visibly scared, of course. But I just thought that was really important to know that, that can happen. you think, oh, I'm on this cruise ship and there's only so many places that he can go. And here we go, it's our first big party where everybody's excited to be on the cruise. And just, you look away and there goes your 6-year-old and you're like, uh-oh, So, yeah, so that happened. And it was a great lesson for us to learn and to know that Disney's cast members are always sort of on the lookout and that they have a procedure that can help you, help reunite you with your child in timely. So that was pretty important.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah. I've never heard.
I mean, at the point in which you have to run to the kids club, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, it was something. And of course, by the time we got him and we came back, the horn had already blown and the party was sort of over and we'd all had a good enough scare just to sort of go back to our room.
So how did was he able to verbalize how he got separated or what happened?
He really didn't verbalize to us. By the time I saw him, he was just, my husband had him in his arms and he was crying, we took us a little bit to calm him down. And no, he never verbalized what had happened. But he ended up really loving the kids club more than my eldest son. So he, it ended up being a very safe space for him, which was great. After something kind of so scary had happened, within the first few hours of being on the cruise, the rest of the cruise, he begged us to go. My youngest, he begged us. So, yeah. So that was pretty important. That happened, and I haven't ever heard anybody talk about that on the podcast. So I wanted to make sure to mention that.
That's great to mention, and it is true. So if you do lose, and it is a fleet-wide rule, if a kid is missing or misplaced, that's the first place they take them to the kids club. Did they call your room?
So not that we know of, but It happened again, which yes, you're going to think that we're the worst parents on the planet. But on one of the days at sea, we were by the pool. And we had given our 6-year-old permission just to go on the smaller slide. And he had just decided that, I don't know what it was, he found his younger cousin and the 3-year-old. And somebody saw the two of them together, I guess, and took them quickly away. And so on that second time, someone had called our wave phone. We had it on us. We had sort of gone through the ropes a little bit and learned. And so we were notified then. And my husband went down there, but brought them back, and it was really sweet because, of course, they were swimming, so they were in their swim gear. By the time we were notified and got down there, which was very quickly, they brought them back in like a little white T-shirt and a little gray shorts, and I couldn't say enough about them that they probably brought the kids down. They probably get a lot of kids down there in their wet bathing suits, so they already had a spare clothes for them. And had the kids' wet clothes in a bag for us. So yeah, it ended up happening twice. The second time wasn't nearly as scary because we knew the procedure at that point. And at no time had we known he was missing yet. We just happened to look down at our phone. It must have happened very quickly.
Don't feel bad about it. I mean, my youngest, he just ventures out by himself sometimes. He's way better now, but when he was younger, he was the one that we had to worry about. And you just with those crowds like that, you turn to the right and he goes left, and all of a sudden they're hard to find. But one other thing to throw out there too is to let the kids know where the kids club is, your younger ones, because if they do get lost and for some reason a cast member does not find them, that's something that they can check themselves into the kids club that way. Does that make sense what I'm saying? Like normally you have to be there to check them in and check them out, but if they're lost like that, if they can make their way to the kids club, they will definitely take them in there as well. So that was something that we talked to our youngest about a couple of cruises ago. It was like, hey, if you're not sure where you're at, just head towards the kids club and get yourself in there. So it's a good, safe place to be.
Absolutely.
So, well, let's talk about some of the other things that you guys did on the ship before we get to the two ports. What were some of the fun things that you got to experience? And we'll talk about the shows here in just a second.
Okay, let's see. Some of the fun things we got to experience. They were showing the movie The Nutcracker in the Buena Vista Theater. Mm-hmm. So on the second day, which was a sea day for us, we took the kids down there to watch the movie. And unfortunately, it was a little scary for both of my sons. So I think we got through maybe a little less than half of it, and both the boys said, "No, we want to go." But we thought that was really neat. That was the only movie we ended up attempting to watch, just because there were just so many other things to do on the ship, and I kind of had that mentality of, I want to do everything. I could watch a movie when I get home, and sure enough, we tried so hard to do everything that there really wasn't any other time for movies. So that C-Day, we got to take in a movie. It was our formal night at Enchanted Garden, which was a lot of fun. We got dressed up and headed early to pictures. I can't stress enough, we heard on your podcast to get there early, and sure enough, our dinner reservations were at 5:45, and we showed up dressed at 5 o'clock. And it was the best decision we ever made. They were essentially just setting up everything. So we were able to move very quickly through, the Christmas tree picture, the staircase picture, the bronze Minnie Mouse, and even Captain Mickey. We got all 4 photos done. So timely. It was a great piece of advice there, is to get in there early, because otherwise the lines can get long.
Did you get the photo package?
We did, and that was another thing that I think that was just one of the best ideas that we did. And again, I got that from your podcast, was that to go ahead and purchase that package if you can, if that's in your budget, to do it. And boy, did we use it. We used it.
And did you purchase one or did every cabin get it, or what did you do about that?
So, great question. In reading sort of the fine print of the contract, our family, our individual 4, ordered it ahead of time. And I think you get like a 10 or 15% discount if you order it a couple days before you get on the ship. No one else in our family did. And I kept reading the fine print, and they were very stringent in the writing in saying that, you really, if there's somebody from another cabin, they sort of can't be in the photo, or I don't think they said can't, but they said they will need their own package, So it worked out fine. When we took our photos, the 4 of us, again, non-issue. But on a semi-formal night, my mother-in-law really wanted to do a big group photo of all 14 of us. And so I would just walk up and give my cabin number, and I got all the photos. So like I said, it was worth every penny.
And so I think how it works is because you're in the cabin and you were in the picture, rather, that works. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you give your cabin number, and sometimes they scan your card. So like when we got the picture package one time, and on that cruise, my mom was in her own cabin, we were in ours. So if she ever had my son taking pictures, she would give his card and or our room number, because she had my son and he was getting his picture taken. And if she was in a picture with us, then she could also be a part of the picture. Now, and if there was ever a picture that it was just her alone, which never occurred, but if it was, she could just give her own room and or scan her own card, and then she could pay for that at the end of the cruise if there was something she liked. So I think that you're still within the cruise rules, technically, with the cruise. Like with Memory Maker, you're technically at Walt Disney World allowed to share it. But with the cruise, you're supposed to get it per cabin. They can't do anything about you taking a picture with multiple cabins. But in theory, and I'm sure that it could have still worked, but in theory it would have broken the quote-unquote rules if your sister-in-law took a picture with her family and then gave your room number.
Yes, agreed. Agreed. It worked out well.
Perfect.
Since this is a very maritime cruise, were you able to experience some of the Christmas stuff, or is there anything that stood out as far as some of the additional Christmas activities?
We really didn't do too many additional Christmas activities except for taking our photos with Santa. And this was really the one time I was actually able to have both of our boys with Santa. And those pictures came out adorable. Aww. So, yeah, I mean, that was such a great keepsake. But other than that, we didn't do a whole lot of, quote unquote, Christmas themed things on the ship. It was all around us and it was beautiful. We saw it snow one night, but otherwise we didn't seek out anything Christmas related.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, wait. Yeah, there's some things we have to discuss here. There's snow and Santa I need to know more about. So,
oh, okay.
Was there something new, or can I go in with my questions?
No, go ahead with it.
All right. So with the Santa, was Santa just in the Navigator like Mickey Mouse is, or was it something you signed up for?
It was just in the Navigator. Yes.
Okay. And so they kept the line open for 15 minutes, and you showed up, get in line, and then you get your picture taken?
Yep.
But
it was longer than 15 minutes, but yes.
Oh, okay. And was he just there one time?
No, he was there multiple times. I would say he was probably there 3 times, at a minimum of 3 times on the cruise.
Okay, great. And then let's talk about the snow for a second. What now?
So I don't have too much information on the snow because we did not plan on seeing the snow. We had just happened to be walking by the main atrium, and it was snowing in the atrium. So that big, gorgeous, beautiful chandelier that they have, that is really the whole Art Deco, theme of the ship is amazing. That chandelier has many different functions from what I've been told, but it also makes it snow. So yeah, so we happened to walk by and we thought, what is this? And sure enough, it was, I wasn't able to touch it, of course, because I think I was on 1 or 2 decks above. But yeah, there were all kinds of children down below and it was snowing. That was pretty spectacular.
What time of day was it?
I want to say midday, maybe early afternoon. That was really something. That was really pretty.
So I've seen them do the snow in the theater. I'm assuming, and it's the same snow that they do on Main Street. So I'm assuming it's the same thing in the atrium. But that's pretty cool that they do it just randomly during the day, as you could be walking by and it's just snowing on the tree.
Yeah. Just just snowing on the ship.
Yeah, it's Christmas. Well,
we're in the Caribbean, but we're just gonna snow. It's just gonna be snowing. That's awesome.
It's magic.
Did you guys get to see any of the shows at all, or any thoughts on any of the shows?
We did. I, for the most part, made sure we saw all 3 of them, plus a ventriloquist and a magician. So I'm a big theater goer. Living at least near LA, I'm able to make it downtown a lot to see a lot of, quote unquote Broadway shows. So I was very enthusiastic about seeing all of these, and they did not disappoint. They were all really great. I think we saw Dreams, Aladdin, and Wishes, I believe. The 3, and of course Aladdin was amazing. The genie takes makes the whole play. But all of them, it's amazing to see the caliber of dancers, the caliber of actors that they have, and how they're able to put on such a grand show on a tiny ship. I just you hear about it. I've heard podcasts about it. Yours in particular, and then you're just wowed. It doesn't matter what people tell you. You just have to see it for yourself. In fact, I think it was the second night we were at sea. Wishes was playing in the Buena Vista Theater. And, we, again, with 14 of us, so we had to get there as early as we could. A lot of times we were split up because we tend to run late anyhow. My husband somehow got mixed up. I think he was looking for my mother-in-law. So he left the theater, and myself and I think one of my sister-in-laws and my boys were able to watch Wishes together, which was really good. Unfortunately, my husband missed it. But during that time, he didn't want to walk back in the theater because he didn't know where we were seated. He went into one of the shops, just, I guess, wasting some time or whatever, spending some time looking around. And he kind of just was feeling kind of down on the dumps because he wasn't with his family and, walking around. And one of the cast members who worked in the shop maybe just noticed my husband and started chit-chatting with him. And, really nice guy. He must have said something really special to my husband, because after the show, I went back to the stateroom. Of course, my husband's there, and we're talking about what happened. And he said, I was chit-chatting with this man in the merchandise area, and, he's a cast member, and he just made him feel so special. He must have noticed that my husband was down in the dumps and just really kind of uplifted his spirits. And my husband had said right then and there, and again, this is just sort of the second night, he's like, I can tell that this is what makes the Disney cruise ship and the Disney experience is cast members or crew members who seek out somebody who may or may not be, looking happy and joyful, and just, standing there and talking to him, just spending the few minutes that he did, and whatever it was that he had said to my husband made his day. And, my husband still talks about that. So that was something that touched us. And he had said, they say that you're paying a little bit more to cruise with Disney. And he's like, there it is. Those are the reasons why you do it. Or, it's because you're not just a number here, as that person sought him out and just made him feel better. So that was something really sweet that had happened.
That's really nice.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think, we all plan so much, and then it's a lot of times it's those little moments like that really are what you remember and take home with you. So thanks for sharing that, Kelly.
Absolutely.
Anything else about the shows or things that you did on the ship that you thought of?
Pirate Night was fantastic. We dressed up, which obviously you don't have to, but I highly recommend. We had a blast, took a lot of fun photos with our kids.
Did you do the Midship Detective?
We did. We did do the Midship Detective. Mm-hmm. We did all 3 in one night. The boys loved it much.
Wow.
It was a lot of walking.
Did you sleep ever on this cruise?
Technically, yes. We must have. In fact, the beds were so comfortable. I think a lot of help. I think it helped a lot to be able to sleep in the complete darkness. And, rocking of the ship. We had it was December that we were cruising in. And so we felt that ship move. I mean, not a lot, but I always felt at night that ship rocked me to sleep. I really loved that.
Yeah, the Eastern Caribbean is further than the ports that they go to in the Western. And so you feel it more for sure on those Eastern cruises. And I think you do on all ships, but man, the Fantasy, I feel the most.
We did.
So speaking of the Eastern, you guys head out to Tortola and St. Thomas. What did you guys have planned there, and what type of excursions did you do?
So we did just one excursion on Tortola and one on St. Thomas. We didn't want to overdo it. On Tortola, we did the Island Drive and Beach Break. And essentially what that was is we got to get on this open air tram that had like a F-350, Ford F-350, engine up front, and there was a driver, and there was 30 of us in the back. And we did this 45-minute drive through these like windy and narrow roads that kind of had you go up and down mountains. It was really, you had to hold on. It was exciting. And we toured the island of Tortola, which was beautiful. Again, a lot of it had been damaged by, I believe it was Hurricane Maria in 2017. So, you're looking at a lot of destruction and a lot of rebuilding. So that was a lot of fun. It took us to an area on the top of a mountain after the 45 minutes. It was called Sky World, and literally like a building, and you go upstairs to the roof and you have these beautiful scenic views of the island. And then they serve you some rum punch, you're back on the tram, and then you do like another 45-minute drive around the other side of the island. So you're essentially doing a complete circle. So when you go back down the mountain, they stop at a beach. And that was a lot of fun. We spent about 45 minutes. They literally just drop you off and they're like, be back. When you hear this horn go, we'll be here for 45 minutes. So we all had our bathing suits on and just ran into the water. The kids got to play really shallow, gorgeous blue water. 45 minutes was up really quickly, and we were back on that tram and back on the ship. So my mother-in-law has some like knee and maybe hip issues. So she wanted to do stuff. We wanted to do stuff that wasn't too adventurous for her. So this was a really good excursion for her. Literally just a drive, beautiful drive, scenic, and a beach.
Do you remember what beach you went to?
I believe it was called the Cane Garden Bay.
Yeah. So that beach is beautiful. For sure. Oh. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of them, but that particular beach is also where I went there a few years ago, and I believe other Disney tours go there. Did you see any other tours while you were there?
The Queen Mary 2 was on the island at the same time as us.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember seeing any other tours.
So people can also, if they wanted, take one of the cabs that are basically, it sounds like the vehicle you took around the island. And you can take that privately to that beach. So just so people know, that is an option as well.
It was a beautiful beach. Recommend.
Do you know, were the restaurants there still? Or at least there was like a major restaurant that was there was like a little straw market, if you will. It's not even that much, but some little shop that sold stuff. But then also a restaurant. Do you know if it was there still?
I don't remember seeing it.
Okay.
But in all fairness, we were rushed a little bit.
Yeah.
There was a lot of us, not only just the 14 of us, there was a lot on our truck. So there was a lot of families and it was such a drive. Like, it was 45 minutes each way. So by the time we all got on the tram, and we were timely, I felt like that truck was hustling to get us back to the port, to the boat.
Yeah.
So we kind of kept all looking at our watches, thinking, are we going to be able to do this? And, we made it back timely, but it was fun.
Well, just a beautiful day in Tortola. Then what did you guys have planned in St. Thomas?
So in St. Thomas, we went on an excursion called the Dubaloon Turtle Cove, sail and snorkel.
Is that with the pirate ship?
It is.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that.
Yeah, and it is a pirate ship, and our boys loved every minute of it, with sails that are black and skulls that are on it, and it was every bit of exciting as it sounds. And highly recommended. We hopped on this pirate ship. They played pirate music, sailed out about 45 minutes, put on snorkel gear, saw some turtles, hopped back on the boat, and then on the way back, they served us pirate punch, and adult pirate punch, I must say. And we hit a massive rainstorm, which ended up being so much fun. Everybody got drenched, and they just kept the drinks coming, so the adults really didn't care. The one thing I will say about this is this excursion is that it really is more for adults. My 9-year-old would have been fine with it. In fact, the captain let my 9-year-old steer the ship, which my 9-year-old loved it. My 6-year-old was too young, though. He's not a great swimmer, and they had these like life jackets, but they weren't a life jacket like we kind of know, where they snap in front and they're styrofoam or what have you. These were like blow up ones for snorkeling. Yeah. So my 6-year-old's not a strong swimmer, and I was very nervous with him. And, we had him right between my husband and I, and when we snorkeled, only one went off and then one would come back. So that, if there was a downside to it, that was it. Otherwise, a blast.
Did your son snorkel at all?
My eldest, no. In fact, neither did. My eldest went in the water, and then I think he just was like, holy moly, I'm in the open seas, and then he just jumped right back on the ship. And then we never let the 6-year-old off the ship. So no, neither child did.
But a good time pretending like they were pirates, going back and forth at least.
Oh, yes. And we played up the pirate ship thing. We just were like, look at you. This is amazing. You can tell all of your friends at school. So that was great.
Well, let's move on to Castaway Cay. How'd you guys spend your day there?
So really quickly before we moved there, we had another interesting thing happen. At St. Thomas that night when we got back, we were at dinner, and our waiter quietly came up to me, I'm not quite sure why, and said that the ship had 17 confirmed cases of GI issues.
Oh, geez.
So we had a breakout on our ship, and that comes into play with sort of like the rest of our vacation. Thankfully, no one in our party of 14 got sick. Very thankful for that. But he stated it very quietly to me and just said, hey, look at, I know you guys have very young children. I want to give you a heads up that this is happening. There's 17 cases on the ship right now. If it gets close to, I believe he said 3%, then I think he said like they're going to have to make like cabanas a staff serve, no longer a buffet. And there were going to be all these other precautions. So we were, this was day 5 for us on the ship. So we were very cautious at that point about food and about handling it and what have you. So, the next morning we ordered room service for breakfast and for lunch because we really felt like less handling of food would have happened from room service than would it be had we gone to cabanas. So that next night, which would have been our 6th night, the waiter came back up to me and said, and mind you, during the next 24 hours, the crew was cleaning the ship like night and day. I mean, it was incredible. They were the buckets, literally buckets of cleaning solution. They were going up and down the railings of the stairs, and anything that could be touched, they were cleaning. I was very impressed by that. And then the next night they said, the numbers have gone down. I forget what it was. So that sort of played into a lot of what we did and didn't do the rest of it, of the the cruise because I had never heard of this happen on the Disney cruise. So I think what it was is oh, no, I'm wrong because they said they have to contact the CDC doesn't matter how many cases they have of it, but that they would still have to contact it if there was 1 or 100. So we were lucky there, but we did see a lot of people who had gotten sick. And that night at Kids Club, somebody threw up in front of us when we were picking up. Yeah. So it was, it was no joke. It could definitely happen. You kind of think, oh, it's Disney. It won't happen. It'll happen. Well, it does. And it did, so.
Some tips for people for that. So this is sort of the norovirus situation that Kelly is referring to with the GI is gastrointestinal. So people will either have, upper stomach issues or lower stomach issues, if that makes sense. And washing your hands is the only way to prevent it. Hand sanitizer actually doesn't really prevent the issues, but it's certainly helpful. And so we actually, Disney hands out those hand wipes when you're walking into the club or into every meal, but we also will hand sanitize after with the type that we carry around with us all the time, after we touch the menus and after we touch the things that lots of other people have touched. Just all of those little ways that you can, and we assist my son with washing his hands and just things like that and trying to keep him from putting his hands in his mouth. And just all of those little tips to try to keep some of that virus at bay, to keep you from getting it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you guys didn't get sick and it didn't affect you other than just, where it kind of maybe made you a little nervous and maybe you guys didn't get to do as much the last couple of days. But let's move on to Castaway Cay, and what did you guys have planned there?
We disembarked late. The ship didn't pull up until 9, and then we couldn't get off the ship until 10. So we really felt like Castaway Cay was amazing, and that we only had such a short period of time there that we felt like we kind of got cut short. It got we didn't get as much time to play as we really wanted to. We got off the ship around 10, hopped on the tram, went to Kids Cove, grabbed some chairs, grabbed our snorkel gear, and headed out to the water. Had an amazing time. My husband and I were able to snorkel out to go see, we saw a turtle and a few other little things that Disney has down in there. It was great. We had a blast. In fact, that's all we got to see because, we had our kids there. I went back and listened to a few other of your podcasts, and we found out there's, not only is there the adult area of the island, which I did know about that, but I had forgot that there were slides over there. And we are a slide family. We didn't get to do any of that, but we did the duck one on the ship like 100 times.
Oh, okay,
as many times as we could. The aqueduct.
Yeah.
As many times as we can get on that, we got on it. So that would have been something fun. So I told my husband, we're going to have to go back and do one of those, turnaround cruises where you get to do Castaway Cay twice because we really didn't get to spend that much time there. But the time that we did spend, we had a great time.
Well, great.
Yeah,
that was sad that you didn't get to spend more time, but great that you had a great time.
Yes, and yes. Not too much happened there, just a lot of fun, a lot of, beach time, a lot of snorkeling. So that's great.
Did the kids stay in the kids club the whole time or just while you were snorkeling?
Not at all. My mother-in-law was right there. We had enough family members to where we were just able to, I think it took like 45 minutes maybe to go out there. So yeah, we never checked our kids in there at all.
Well, magical day in Castaway Cay, and you guys head back onto the ship, and your last night before you get back to Port Canaveral, what did you guys have planned, and what did you guys do that last evening?
Well, besides packing, which was difficult, I tried not to overpack, but I know I did. We went and saw Dreams, which was great, but I think I fell asleep within 10 or 15 minutes of it starting, and I feel horrible about that. But I had so much fun snorkeling on Castaway Cay that I think my body just couldn't take it. So, like I said, Dreams, the theaters, the shows were great. But I think that was the last show that we caught in the last night. Saw it, got through most of it awake, and then back to the cabin and, started packing. That was it, man.
I really like Disney Dreams. That's like one of my favorites. I love the music in that. So you guys spend the night watching that. the next day, did you guys go to Cabanas or did you eat in the restaurant together from the last night?
So we actually went to Cabanas. We sort of felt safe enough to let's just do it and get off the ship. So we ate at Cabanas. We were really careful and we had a great meal.
Well, how was the disembarkation, getting off and then heading over to Walt Disney World?
So disembarkation was difficult. It took over an hour. Unfortunately, there were, you all have your sort of different times, and when you come down there were a lot of lines, and we probably stood for over an hour. Unfortunately, we just really felt that because we disembarked twice, well, 3 times technically, but twice where we had spent quite a bit of time just trying to get off the ship, and we really felt that would probably be another thing that Disney could work on.
What time did you leave? What time did you disembark?
8:15. I checked on that. So we disembarked. We were told to be downstairs at 8:15, and we did not get off the ship until close to 9:30.
Wow.
Yeah. And then picking up the luggage, that was a busy place. I don't think anybody can sort of prepare you when you're going through customs. That was a lot.
Did you get a porter?
My one sister-in-law did. Yeah, we only had 4 pieces of luggage for 4 of us. So we just felt like, everybody grab the luggage you're responsible for and let's roll. Unfortunately, it could have run smoother and it didn't go the way we had wished.
I think I'm becoming a big fan of, since our kids are a little bit older, we don't give our luggage over to Disney. We just pack it up and leave it in the room, go eat, come back, grab the stuff, and then just walk off. It just seems to be easier than kind of going through the whole mess, it seems like. But that's been a positive experience for us.
You do just have to leave your room by 8 o'clock, though. So that is what the time Disney wants you out of your cabin. And so
that must be a Port Canaveral thing, because
maybe
the Mediterranean, when we went to Norway, we could leave. I think it was 9:30. So
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get till 9:30.
So I'm gonna have a rude awakening, is what you're saying, when we go.
You are, and they start even making messages at maybe 8:30 that says, "Please finish your breakfast and get out."
Wow. Okay. Well,
I don't think she uses the word "get out," but she definitely says, "Finish your breakfast and please disembark."
Yeah.
And then they say it every 15 minutes and at 9:30 they basically make it sound like you're a stowaway for still being on the ship.
Oh man. Oh man, we're gonna have to just go back and cruise the Met again, I guess. It's a kinder, gentler program over there. It's going to be rough. I'm telling you. Well, thinking back,
gentler program.
Well, thinking about it on this cruise, Kelly, just amazing Christmas time cruise for you and your family to be together to kind of honor your father-in-law and whatnot. What were kind of the highlights that you guys took out for this week spent together on the cruise ship?
I would definitely say the time spent together and the memories made. You have your little ups and downs, but really what they are little ups and downs. We just made so many great memories together. I think that our children for many, many years to come will remember. I know my kids are just begging to get back on a Disney cruise right now. So we're trying everything we can in our power to get back on it. Speaking of memories being made, we had another kind of magical thing happen to us, or a Disney magical thing that we talk about. And really quickly, one night, there were 4 adults, my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law, and their infant son, who's about 7 months old. The 4 of us were just sitting down. It was late. It was probably 10, maybe 10:15. And we had grabbed some, went over to Cabanas or to the quick serve and grabbed some pizzas and, whatever it was. We were having an alcoholic drink, just sitting in kind of like a general area, talking about what a wonderful time we were having, just enjoying ourselves. And Chip and Dale walked by, and this just goes to show Disney and how great they are. Essentially, we have a 7-month-old with us, and I think at the time he was sleeping in my sister-in-law's hands. But being Disney and being Chip and Dale, they walked over to both of them walked over to us and looked at our food and rubbed their tummies, wanting to eat some of the food that we were sitting there as we're having alcoholic drinks. And then, the handler was like, oh, no, we have to go. And he kind of pulled like, no, I want some of their, pizza or whatever it was that we'd had in front of us. And then, of course, they were off and on their way. And we all had such a great laugh over that and kind of said to ourselves, those characters didn't have to stop and talk to us, didn't have to engage us at all. There were no children around, essentially, besides our, sleeping the sleeping 7-month-old. But they really wanted to go above and beyond and really just tickle us as adults. Mm-hmm. And those are the types of experiences that we are talking about just a few months outside of this cruise, is how Disney has done such a great job to touch every age. And not just a child, but even an adult, right? So those are the things that we are taking away. It's those moments. It's not the money. It's not, disembarkation that may take a little bit of time. It's about those moments where maybe it's somebody in the merchandise area who makes you feel better, or maybe it's just Chip and Dale being funny with adults. But that's what it's about.
Well, I'm not sure I can top that. Not to try and top it, but I'm not sure.
I think that's the perfect ending.
I think that's the perfect ending, Kelly. And I would guess, did you guys book another cruise, or did you buy a placeholder by any chance?
We did buy a placeholder, yes.
So
we did.
Really look at those West Coast cruises. They're not too bad. Being in SoCal, it's just a drive down to San Diego. If it's a little bit tougher to get out to the East Coast, I'm not sure if going down to Mexico excites you. Maybe it's easier to get down to Mexico where you live. But we had a lot of fun on the one that we did out of San Diego, so it might be another option for you.
All right, yeah. Thank you for the advice.
Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for coming on and sharing your experiences tonight. We really appreciate it. And when you head out when you decide where you guys are going to go and head out on the next cruise, definitely give us a shout out, and we'll have you back on. We'll talk some more Disney Cruise Line.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's going to wrap up our show today. Once again, I really want to thank Kelly for coming on and sharing her and her family's experiences as they cruised on the beautiful Disney Fantasy through the Eastern Caribbean on a very merry time cruise. And I want to thank all of you who have gone over to iTunes recently and left us reviews. That really helps us get the show known a little bit better on the podcast community, especially the cruising and the Disney community. So that really helps us out. If you have time to do so, we sure would appreciate it. If you would like to get a hold of Christy and I between now and our next show, you can always reach us over at Facebook at DCL Podcast. Of course, you can reach me, Steve, on Twitter at DCL Podcast, and also my new email address, steve@dclpodcast.com. Of course, you can find Christy over at packyourpixiedust.com, PackYRPixieDust on Twitter, and PackYourPixieDust on Facebook as well. So between now and our next show, if you are heading out on your next vacation, all of us here at the DCL Podcast would like to wish you fair winds and safe travels as you head out on your next adventure. Once again, thanks for coming back and taking a listen, and we'll see you next time on the DCL Podcast.